Alright guys, we're going to do another super short. This time we're going to go over something very basic, rocket squads. Now, move this over. Rocket squads and the laser squads are the exact same thing. They're very good against vehicles and air units. They're cheap at only 20, and obviously their counter is basic riflemen. They are potentially a good starter. They're very useful. They're a bread and butter unit. You know, the riflemen are a great scout. Your rocket squads are usually a good follow-up if the opponent is trying to build air or tanks to rush you, or, you know, to hold those points. It's a cheap unit that can fight them on pretty good terms. There's very few early game vehicles that can actually defeat rocket squads. The rhinos and the buggies, of course, being the only ones you can build right off the bat at this stage in the game. To defeat them, that is a vehicle. And of course, the air units, which the airfield's a little bit more, so it's very rare that someone will start with one of those, although they might pull it more medium game. Does have stuff like the Venom, which will do about the same as the buggies, honestly. They'll win, but just barely, and they do cost 50% more. So actually, the rocket squads are a good investment against them. They are a little slower across the map, but yeah, when fighting something like an actual Scorpion tank, Predator tank, heck, even later in the game, when fighting something like one of these worms, the rock worms, a lot of people are like, oh, how do I kill a rock worm? Throw 2 rocket squads on a point, let him come to you, kill him. Now, there are things that they won't do very good against. Flame troopers, the new Shockwave troopers, they're not out yet, but they work just like flame troopers from what I understand. Actual flame tanks, even basic riflemen, the Tiberium troopers, there's a lot they're not going to do good against. And because they are cheap, they won't win a lot of their battles, but they are probably, in the game, the most cost to power you will actually be able to get. They're, like I said, they're not going to win all your battles, but if you pump them out, even medium game, heck, even sometimes in late game, you can turn the tide of battle against your opponent. He's building bombers, build a couple laser troopers or rocket squads for GDI. You know, he's, I mean, it counters so much, and it's such a cheap unit. Now, again, I've said it might not win, but you might need like 2 to defeat something like this, a Titan. But 2 will actually kill a Titan. That's 40 cost for 130 cost. That's ridiculous. And the things, I mean, yeah, like this will tear up any number, the disruptor of rocket squads. So, I mean, there are times when you don't want to do them. Like I said, they're not going to win by themselves. 1v1, and if you're pumping out one unit to his one unit, if he's winning every battle, that's not good. But they're cheap. Cheap is the key there. You're fighting a almost equal battle, weakening him if not tearing him apart, and you're saving a lot of your money. And then you can use that money that you saved from building rocket squads for a while putting a pressure against them to pump out more expensive units to actually finish him off, counter his guys, hold those points. You know, a lot of stuff. Don't underestimate the rocket squads. Early game, someone's coming at you with attack bikes, pit bulls, air units, bombers, pretty much anything. Rocket squads are your counter until you can build up to an actual tank. Which, by the time you build probably 2 or 3 rocket squads, you'll have the money for that. Only 20 points apiece. You can be pumping those out without a harvester. You know, with a harvester, you pump out 1 or 2 of those, you're sitting on top of like 60, 80 points. You can pump out a tank or something, you know? You can pump out an airfield to some cheap little air units, you know, or a couple more rocket squads and an expensive air unit. Heck, if you go on too long, you can even get a tech lab out, and then your expensive units. But they're not going to do anything against snipers, flame troopers, disruptor towers. You know, there are some hard counters that will tear them up, so you cannot rely on them alone. And if you're pumping out riflemen to try to counter infantry early game, like really, really early, that can work. But as soon as they pump out a flame trooper or a Tiberium trooper or the upcoming Shockwave troopers, disruptor troopers, your infantry's useless. You got to get out some air vehicles. You cannot rely on them alone. Anyway, that's it. There's nothing super tactical about rocket squads, besides really good for counter rushes, and don't underestimate them even in the late game. Not for just their raw power, which power to cost ratio, but their ability to save money to pump out what you need, the things you need later. Great cheap unit. I mean, it's almost a staple for every army. You can run without a rifle squad. You can run like a flame trooper, or you can even run, buggies and air, venom, whatever. There's a lot There's a lot of things you could do. I wouldn't say flame tanks for early game, but there's a lot of things you could do to deal with infantry early game, where you could skip a rifleman, but then you maybe lost a scout. But like buggies also can scout quite well too. But those laser troopers or rocket troopers, there is almost no substitute for them. There is no substitute really for them early game. If you try running only tanks, you could do that, but if someone counters you with those exact troops, you find yourself in a difficult spot. I mean, it is very rare that you'll see an army run without rocket troopers. It's doable, but I'd say probably about 80 to 85% of the good army selections out there will have this in the army. Anyway, I'd say about half of them are going to have riflemen too. I mean, it's almost a staple for the beginning of the game. Riflemen, laser troopers, or rocket squads. That can get you through the beginning, at least up into where you can pump out your tanks and air next. The worst thing for this is like someone built flame troopers right away. But even that, the money, you build a 10 cost unit, you see a flame trooper, I don't need to build a rocket squad. Get up to my war factory for 40 costs, it's the same cost as this guy. Before he can pump out a second unit or another builder or anything, you can also be building different types of units and a counter for that flame trooper. And then you've got variety. But that's going to be it for this round. Hope that helps. Soon we'll be going over the next unit. Peace.